And now Chapter 4, The Appearance of Sri Narad. On hearing Sutta Goswami speak thus, Shonaka Muni, who was the elderly, learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Sutta Goswami by addressing him as follows. O Sutta Goswami, you are the most fortunate and respected of all those who can speak and recite. Please relate the pious message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by the great and powerful sage Shukdev Goswami. In what period and at what place was this first begun, and why was this taken up? From where did Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile this literature? His, Vyasdev's son, was a great devotee and equibalanced monist, whose mind was always concentrated in monism. He was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. While Sri Vyasadev was following his son, beautiful young damsels who were bathing naked covered their bodies with cloth, although Sri Vyasadev himself was not naked. But they had not done so when his son had passed. The sage inquired about this, and the young ladies replied that his son was purified, and when looking at them, made no distinction between male and female. But the sage made such distinctions. How was he, Srila Shukdev, the son of Vyas, recognized by the citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapur, after wandering in the provinces of Kuru and Jangala, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded? How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas, or the Bhagavatam, to be sung to him? He, Shukdev Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked, and he did this just to sanctify the residence. It is said that Maharaj Parikshit is a great first-class devotee of the Lord, and that his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please tell us about him. He was a great emperor and possessed all the opulences of his acquired kingdom. He was so exalted that he was increasing the prestige of the Pandu dynasty. Why did he give up everything to sit down on the bank of the Ganges and fast until death? He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? Those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. They do not live for any selfish interest. So even though the emperor, Parikshit, was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body, which was shelter for others? We know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects, except some portions of the Vedas, and thus you can clearly explain the answers to all the questions we have just put to you. Suta Goswami said, "When the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashara in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. Once upon a time, he, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution in the waters of the Sarasvati and sat alone to concentrate. The great sage Vyasadeva saw anomalies in the duties of the millennium. This happens on the earth in different ages due to unseen forces in the course of time. The great sage, who was fully equipped in knowledge, could see, through his transcendental vision, the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. He saw that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas were means by which the people's occupations could be purified. And to simplify the process, he divided the one Veda into 4, in order to expand them among men. The 4 divisions of the original sources of knowledge, the Vedas, were made separately, but the historical facts and authentic stories mentioned in the Puranas are called the 5th Veda. After the Vedas were divided into 4 divisions, Paila Rishi became the professor of the Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor of the Sam Veda, and Vaishampayana alone became glorified by the Yajurveda. The Sumantu Muni, Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the ignorant masses so they might be assimilated by less intellectual men. Out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus he compiled the great historical narration called the Mahabharata for women, laborers, and friends of the twice-born. O twice-born Brahmins! Still his mind was not satisfied, although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of all people. Thus the sage, being dissatisfied at heart, at once began to reflect, because he knew the essence of religion, and he said within himself, "I have, under strict disciplinary vows, unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, the spiritual master, and the altar of sacrifice. I have also abided by the rulings, and have shown the import of disciplic succession through the explanation of the Mahabharata, by which even women, Shudras, and others, such as friends of the twice-born, can see the path of religion. I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas. This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord." As mentioned before, Narad reached the cottage of Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas on the banks of the Sarasvati just as Vyasadeva was regretting his defects. At the auspicious arrival of Sri Narad, Sri Vyasadeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator. Thus ends the 4th chapter of the 1st canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Appearance of Sri Narad.